Hi everyone, Victoria Waco, Mrs. New York American 2024. It is St. Patrick's Day, depending on when you watch this, hence my Gaelic and garlic t-shirt. This was actually a gift from my grandmother on my mother's side, who is Irish. And I don't know if I've said this before, but my dad is from Italy, so she thought this was like the perfect shirt for me. But putting this shirt on, and after a couple of conversations the last few days, I realized I haven't shared a ton about like my story recently, and so I thought it might be good to do a couple of videos, some story times, I guess, depending on what parts of it you're most interested in. I'm happy to like focus more on one thing or another thing. But basically, now you would look at me, I'm a happily, married woman. I adore my husband. I love like quirky things. Some of you know I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. But statistically, I shouldn't be as successful as I am. I grew up primarily for the first 7 years of my life with my mom. My mom and dad were not married. They were not together. Story time for another time is my dad's family actually didn't even know I existed for almost the first 2 years of my life. Like I said, crazy. I have so many stories. I'm going to try to keep this one brief and tell me what you're more interested in. But my mom was a drug addict and alcoholic, so I grew up in a household with there was domestic violence. There were times we had no food. I have gone to food banks as a kid. We were on food stamps. It was just not a great situation. There was a lot of chaos around me growing up. And I think one of the things for me is the system I was just in was very, very unhealthy. I have 2 half brothers who were like going back and forth with their dad. We have different dads. I was going back and forth. There was a lot of custody battles that were more so about power and control than they were about what was best for me and what was like had the best interest of me as a child in them. So I grew up a lot of my very young life, my voice not mattering, what was best for me not mattering. And it was really because everyone in the system, everyone around truly just didn't have the skills or like the maturity or ability to truly put what my needs and what I needed first. And that was a really, really hard thing. And that's part of like therapy, right? It's coming to understand that the flaws and the like limitations of the people that raised you. I had a learning disability early on, probably a mix of fetal alcohol syndrome and also just, those early childhood things that help you be a good learner, the reading to you, the interaction. I just didn't probably have as much of that as other kids did because of the system I was growing up in. And so I wasn't, I was earmarked as a kid who probably was not going to graduate high school, probably should just get a GED early on. And I knew education was going to be my way out. And I could tell so many stories about teachers and mentors in the school setting who really, really, teachers are amazing people. And my teachers really believed in me and worked really, really hard with me. And I'm so grateful to them for seeing my potential through all areas of school, from elementary school all the way up through high school. Because I did graduate high school. I went on and I have 2 master's degrees now, and I work in a field I love. I work in nonprofit, giving back to communities, and that's all truly possible because of the people who believed in me in my life. When I was in kindergarten, my brother was shot and killed and unalived, and he was 16 at the time, and kind of just like the family, like I said, that system that I was living in just was hit so hard, and like the functioning went to an all-time low because of that. Trying to make this as short as possible, ended up living with my dad. My mother's addiction went downhill pretty quickly after that. I visited her in jail as a kid. She OD'd. I remember visiting her after she OD'd as a kid. She was actually at one point hit by a truck. I mean, these are all like stories within themselves, but all this happened. And then when I was 10 years old, 2 weeks after I had turned 10 years old, my mom passed away. My mom is the longest unsolved case in Genesee County, the county I grew up in, history. They still don't know what happened. Again, because of the system that I was living in the system she was in, there's a lot of reasons why it's unsolved to this day, but it is, that was a really hard thing as a 10-year-old to go through. And it was even harder because I think at school I tried really hard to paint a different story about what my life was. And with the news of my mom being all over the news, her criminal record all over the news, like just everything was like out there in our small community to see. It was really hard for me to feel like I felt like I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. And that was another thing I had to cope with. So I just, yeah, again, those early years of your life can be so formative, and I went through so much during them that I think at this point, it's years of therapy, years of working on myself. It led me to truly believe that what I wanted to do was to help other kids and pull them up behind me, because I figured out a way out, and I wanted them to see hope and a way out for them also. And that's what I do now. I've been mentoring teens since I was 19 years old. Seems crazy to me. I work full time with education, mentoring families and children. I have created this beautiful life. I have a wonderful husband, a beautiful life. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Is my life perfect? Absolutely not. But I have created a life of my own design and continue to work through things to have a happy, healthy, whole life. And that's what I want for every single kid also. Like I said, that was like a really brief, quick overview. There's so many more stories. If you want to hear more stories, either from me growing up or like so much even happened during my middle school, high school years, if you want to hear more about different dynamics, I am willing to share them. And sorry I haven't done this sooner, I guess. I realize it's been a long time since I kind of did a sharing about me and my story and why I'm here. But what I love best is I can say you too can be a queen, you can be a king, you can have a happy, healthy whole life. My winning Mrs. New York American wasn't just about like the validation of winning a crown. It was truly about saying that when you heal and when you work on yourself and when you have people around you that believe in you, you can make a life where you are royalty, even without the crown.